Hello, my friends. So I'm back in the United States, and I'm going to be starting a tour on living in the light, yoga for self-realization. The book comes out on January 3rd, and it's written with my yoga teacher, Sarah Finger. I'll be doing a book tour, but the book is now available for pre-order. Should you be interested. Second, I will be also interviewing Jude Curran shortly. She's a physicist, and beautiful book, The Story of Gaia, The Big Breath, and the Evolutionary Journey of Our Conscious Planet. She's challenging Darwinian evolution, which I've done for a bit too. And thirdly, before I start on my main topic today, which is about freedom from the concept of death, I want to actually just refer to a couple of articles here. First of all, there's a cover story on quantum metabolism, which is very good, but very physicalist. The author, who's an evolutionary biologist, says nothing about how consciousness and states of consciousness, including sleep, dream, wakefulness, meditation, higher consciousness, archetypal consciousness, or states like anxiety and depression and hostility influence metabolism. None of that, even though this is a cover story. So sorry, Scientific American, you could have done a little better on that story. There's another story here, which is of great interest. It's about how the atoms in our body are forged in the crucible of burning stars. That is fascinating because then it surely literally proves that you're a stardust being. But this particular issue also addresses how heavy elements are made. Heavy elements means things like gold, platinum, xenon, radon, and many rare earth elements. And according to this current cosmological model, they're made as a result of the collision of proton, proton stars or neutron stars. A collision of neutron stars creates a phenomenon called the R process. And so every heavy element that I just mentioned is also made through a cosmic conspiracy. And then the third article, which is very nice, is the questioning of the universe as not locally real. Here you go. The universe is not locally real. And it starts with a story about the three scientists who won the Nobel Prize this year. And I'll just read the introduction to you. One of the most unsettling discoveries in the past half a century is that the universe is not locally real. In this context, real means that objects have definite properties independent of observation. An apple can be read even when no one is looking. Or that's, what is called realism or local realism. Local means that objects can be influenced only by their surroundings, and that any influence cannot travel faster than light. Investigations at the frontiers of quantum physics have found that these things cannot be both true. Instead, the evidence shows that objects are not influenced solely by their surroundings, and they may also lack definite properties prior to measurement. So no object, ultimately, starting with quantum objects to what we call perceptual objects, have have any existence prior to measurement or prior to observation. So this article, as usual, because of the physicalist bias of the American, Scientific American, which is fine, actually does not even address who or what is measuring, who or what measures. I think who or what even measures what the body is, who or what measures what the experience of the body is. So if local realism is out, which means nothing local really exists, then that should include your body mind because it's a local experience. So your body doesn't exist unless conceived, constructed, measured in consciousness. So that actually leads me to today's topic. And it's based on an article that I just published today in various outlets. It's called A Surprising Answer About the Afterlife. So I'm going to read my own article, make some comments, and then leave you with some things to think about, or perhaps not to think about. Okay, so here's my article that I'm reading with a few commentaries as I go along. Even as modern society turns away more and more from organized religions, spiritual questions linger. The most universal question, after asking if God exists, concerns life after death. As complicated as the issue seems to be, it can be broken down into three perspectives that in themselves are quite simple. The perspective of a believer supports life after death. The skeptical perspective denies it. The undecided people stand in the middle. Yet even where militant skeptics and devout believers declare their certainty, everyone bases their position secondhand. The lack of direct proof renders the afterlife a non-question. It has been a non-question for as long as recorded history. Therefore, the fundamental issue is actually whether the afterlife can be transformed into a viable question. Let me try. I believe it can, but it requires an open mind that has discarded the received wisdom that skeptics and believers both cling to. Turning the afterlife into a valid question must return to basics, which means clearly defining terms. The most basic term in this case is consciousness, because if you don't specify what consciousness actually is, and by the way, if you don't specify that, you can't even ask the question. But if you don't specify what consciousness actually is, you wind up worrying about the survival of what we call the soul, or of me, the individual ego personality. Even if those pitfalls are avoided, Eastern traditions are filled with equally confusing notions, useful but confusing to a lot of people, Jiva, Atman, and Brahman, or of Nirvana and Satori. If there's a definition of consciousness in the absence of bias, predisposition, received wisdom, myth, group pressure, wishful thinking, fear, apprehension, and even mental figments of every sort, the afterlife will become a viable question. So what can we truthfully say about consciousness that no reasonable person will disagree with? Here I can relate a few things that I've been able to explain to people over the years. Number one, there is only one consciousness. To subdivide consciousness makes no sense. This point is lifted almost verbatim from Erwin Schrödinger, the eminent quantum physics pioneer. Schrödinger's equation explains all the atoms in the universe, just so you know. So Schrödinger, the eminent quantum physics pioneer, who said philosophically, the one consciousness position is common to monistic schools. And, Schrödinger said, there's only one consciousness. To subdivide consciousness makes no sense. Yet, when dealing with everyday people, it's obvious that we all cling fervently to being separate individuals outfitted with my family, my house, my body, my mind, my soul. To crack this allegiance requires arguments like the following. Please listen carefully what I'm saying right now. When you get wet, do you call it my wet? If you sing the Star-Spangled Banner as you walk down the street, did the song walk down the street with you? If you imagine your mother's face, where is that mental image located? The brain has no pictures in it and no light. When you imagine your mother's face, you simply call up what you wish to see. You just have the intention. In all these examples, the experience seems personal, but is actually rooted in shared consciousness that is applicable to everyone. So all these things, your mother's face, the Star-Spangled Banner, the experience of wetness are memories, actually, stored as potentials in consciousness for manifestation, but consciousness itself is totally formless. So, and therefore infinite, and therefore non-local, and therefore not in space-time. Okay, now let's go to the second point. The second point, reasonable people can accept is that this one consciousness cannot be located. It is everywhere all at once. This point sounds like a hard sell, but in everyday life, the argument is easily based upon physics. Just what I read to you from that article in Scientific American. Cosmologists and quantum physicists agree that space-time originated in a domain variously referred to as the 0 point, the quantum vacuum state, or the realm of pure mathematics that isn't in time and space. So the realm of pure mathematics is also not in time and space. It's in consciousness, which is also not in time and space. So the entire universe, as well as the individual subatomic particles, emerged from this potential state, which has no qualities we would recognize as linear time, dimensionality, solidity, energy, etc. At the very least, all creation stories, scientific or not, converge on the creation of something out of nothing. Beyond our experience of reality in space-time, there's a field of infinite potential and unbounded possibilities. This pre-created potential state is therefore always and now, here and everywhere. And point number 3, and this is the next point, is that the field of all possibilities is conscious. There is no doubt that the existence of consciousness must be accounted for. There are only 2 viable possibilities that are taken seriously. The matter first position holds that mind has its origins in matter and energy, to which some theorists add information. The mind first position holds that consciousness is the source of everything, including matter and energy. If there are only these 2 positions, how do we decide between them? The 2 explanations are incompatible and, more critically, totally self-consistent. It isn't possible to step outside the framework of mind first or matter first to gather evidence. In deciding between mind first and matter first, the crux is a single question. Is it more probable that matter somehow learned to think, or that mind can create matter? I will show you in a second how mind creates the construct of matter. It seems astonishing that more than 90% of scientists are so conditioned to reduce every issue to matter and energy. To use the favored term nowadays, they are physicalists. They accept without investigation the assumption that the sugar in a sugar cube, once ingested, can travel past the blood-brain barrier and suddenly think, feel, wish, dream, and do science. No one has remotely come up with how this happens. No one has remotely come up with how this happens. The brain is composed of ordinary atoms and molecules. It didn't become conscious through the random combination of complex organic chemicals. In this model, the physicalist model, the very notion that the brain is the only thing in creation, and that consciousness is a brain creation seems untenable, and I'll show you why. Because as said, the brain is composed of ordinary atoms and molecules. It didn't become conscious through the random combination of complex organic chemicals. The argument for mind first is much stronger. The simplest argument is the impossibility of the matter first position, which leaves only one other viewpoint that can possibly be true. But to most people, such an argument feels like sleight of hand. Therefore, we can point to the human brain, where every sensation, image, feeling, and thought pushes brain chemicals around, redirects them to various parts of the body, causes vital signs to change either slowly or abruptly, and actually produces some chemicals such as neurotransmitters simply through experiences in consciousness. In physics, the creation of something out of nothing has been lurking in the background as the ultimate question. Yet, with reference to everyday experience, the mystery becomes both personal and self-evident. If someone whispers in your ear, listen carefully, I love you. Somebody whispers in your ear, I love you. The mind-body system will display hundreds of changes dissimilar to what occurs if the whispered words are, I have a gun pointed at your heart. See, the body will respond differently, so will the brain. The deciding factor isn't material in the slightest. It consists of mental activity, the continual production of thoughts, words, meaning, purpose, direction, intention, and so on. It is far from impossible to convince reasonable people that these points are true. They stem from defining consciousness in the most basic, intuitively validated way. Now consider how the argument can be applied to the existence of what we call the afterlife. Consciousness being non-local, point number one, is not subject to birth and death. Point number two, even in physicalist terms, there must be a pre-created or potential state beyond time and space. Birth and death, being aspects of linear time, are not present as such in consciousness except as possibilities. An argument can be made that certain abstract experiences, such as mathematics and information, have an indestructible aspect, again immune to birth and death. So information and mathematics, like energy and matter, are actually indestructible. And finally, a few more points. Body, mind, and the world out there cannot be divorced from our experience. In order to call something body, mind, or world, we need to first experience it. The only reasonable location for body, mind, and the outside world is in consciousness itself. If all of the above are true, then nothing exists except as a modified state of consciousness. Some of those states we identify as matter and energy, so as constructs. Matter and energy are constructs. But this, for a particular experience, hardness, solidity, shape, color, form, texture, borders, taste, smell, these are modalities of awareness which humans call matter. So if these statements are true, then nothing exists except as a modified state of consciousness. Some of these states, as I said, we identify with matter. There have been societies where mind first was just as self-evident as matter first. And these societies still exist. Having laid out in truncated form the argument for consciousness as the basis of reality, not everyone may be willing to follow the clues that lead to what could be called the afterlife. But that isn't as important as realizing that we have been asking the wrong questions all along, and what made them wrong was the exclusion of consciousness. Until we are all willing to think fresh thoughts instead of flagging received opinions, consciousness won't rescue us from an age-old dilemma. If consciousness begins to expand on an individual basis, there is hope for clarity. More important, we can begin to bring centuries of baseless fear and superstition to an end. I suggest that ending the superstition of matter would be a good start. It's a useful superstition, the superstition of matter, for creating technology. But now, where is technology taking us? Technology is taking us to a very interesting place. The essential nature of the material world is that it's non-material. The essential stuff of the universe is non-stuff. But here's the important thing. The essential stuff of the universe is non-stuff, but it is also thinking non-stuff, and it is you. The essential non-stuff, which is thinking non-stuff, is you. So that's the basis. Prakritim swam vashtve vishrajami puna puna. Curving back within myself, I create again and again. I create the mind, I create the body, I create the universe. And it recycles as memory, as imagination, as desire. And then it evolves. And that evolution is a never-ending horizon. It's you. So I'll conclude with Rumi's great quotes. This here is not the real reality. The real reality is behind the curtain. In truth, we are not here. This is our shadow. And one more or two more. We come spinning out of nothingness, scattering stars like dust. Look at these words, spinning out of nothingness, and this is you. When you totally grasp this and understand this, not only intellectually, but experientially, then you will realize that in order to experience freedom from death, we need to experience freedom from all false and provisional identities. Our absolute identity is just that, pure consciousness, infinite possibilities on an evolutionary journey that never ends. Rumi once again, when I die, I will soar with angels, and when I die to the angels, what I shall become, you cannot imagine. So reflect on what I've said and let me know if it's useful. Thank you, my friends.